Welcome to Bloom Today. We have a heartfelt show for you. We're going to be discussing looking for love in all the wrong places.
Hi, I'm Paula Wallace, president of Bloom in the Dark, and this is
Ginny Priz, the single-handed serenity coach. Welcome to Bloom Today, where we talk about internal and external brokenness and how you can heal,
so that you can use the fertilizer of your past to bloom today. Hey everybody, so glad to have you join us. Today we're talking about looking for love in all the wrong places. And we've tried that, haven't we?
Oh, I've looked for love in a whole lot of places that I never should have looked. It's been a bit of a jungle and a struggle to figure out where the right places are. What about you?
Well, I've learned crazy lessons about thinking that any love was better than no love, even if it wasn't love at all.
Absolutely.
Because attention, bad attention, any kind of attention was better than being ignored, you know, no attention at all. And one of the craziest times that showed up for me was thinking that a codependent friendship with a best friend, that wasn't hurting anybody, that wouldn't cause any problems. Until that codependent relationship actually brought the best friend not just into my home or my life, but into my marriage. And you start realizing that it's not okay just because it's a best friend. If it's not a healthy relationship, it can bring someone into your marriage where that then hands off to temptation for your spouse to have an affair and to go off on an entirely different path where it's not really harmless. Looking for love in friendship that way is not really a problem, suddenly becomes what ends your marriage.
That is an extreme result, if you will, of codependency.
Which is a love addiction, right?
Absolutely. It is a love addiction. And I mean, I've had so many different kinds of love addictions with just friends, let alone boyfriends. And what it ended up being for me a lot of times was I expected people to read my mind. If this was a great relationship or if they were really a good friend, then you should be able to know exactly what I'm thinking, what I need, when I need it. You should know when I'm feeling down and know how to make me feel better magically. And if we spend enough time together, then you would be interested in reading those cues, because I was so good at reading those cues. So I thought everyone else should be as well. Why isn't everyone else picking up on my cues when I'm trying so hard to pick up on theirs? But what ended up happening was when they didn't pick up on my cues, I would shut them out a lot of times without any kind of closure, any kind of discussion or trying to work on it or understand. I just really thought, you know what? If you can't read my mind, then I'm going to be done. I'm going to walk away.
And you don't love me enough.
Yeah, you must not love me enough, yeah.
So being a chameleon means everybody else needs to be a chameleon too. But do you know how hard it is for somebody to reflect something that isn't even solid? So if I don't know who I am, if I haven't developed my own identity, if I'm not solid in who I am as a person, it's hard for you to reflect that.
Right.
One way or the other.
Pick up on those cues, right.
So you end up having this whole mess, invisible mirror kind of thing where nobody can see anything. And it just gets to be a scrambled,
jumbled mess. Totally.
Yeah, I've been there on that stuff too, and it's so not a good idea when we don't have a solid sense of identity because we're looking for somebody else to create that identity or loving somebody to fill that need for love and identity. And it ends up showing up in so many different dysfunctional types of relationships and ways. It doesn't
even need to be personal. It can be professional as well. You know, oh my gosh, if my boss doesn't approve of what I'm doing at work, then there must be something wrong with me.
You have no value if you're not getting the accolades and approval and the opportunities, right?
I'm starting from square one, because if you don't approve of this one thing that I did, then I must not be worth anything. So now I have to rebuild or in my own mind, I have to rebuild all of the trust and the good things, because if you don't approve once, then forget it. You have rejected me entirely.
So our identity ends up being tied to other people's opinions and other people's treatment and other people's feelings, which if the way people treat you is abusive, then that morphs into, if that's where I find my validation is in you and you're abusing me, then you are validating my brokenness and my lack of value and my worthlessness.
Absolutely.
Which then makes it so much easier for me to know I am worthless and have no value, and all the victim thinking that comes along with that. But I don't think that's what God had in mind in relationships for some reason.
No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's definitely not what he had in mind. He doesn't want us to be walking around looking for love any other place but to him first. That's so key, but that's what I never got growing up, or never really truly understood. It's not that I wasn't told this repeatedly, I'm sure, but I just didn't get it or understand that the personal relationship and going from my head to my heart, how that needed to change in my life.
So if I want to have better relationships outside, the first thing I need to do is start working on myself. Absolutely. To start going to a relationship with God, because he kind of designed me with a God-sized hole in my soul, where he's the only one that's actually going to be able to fill that space, and no addiction is going to be able to fill it. No other relationship with another human is going to be able to fill it. My identity isn't going to be fixed by who I marry or who's my best friend or what I'm doing to try to distract or fill that hole. So I've got to start out by things like understanding how to treat myself the way God says.
That you deserve to be treated. And I mean, we don't get what we deserve because every sin requires death, right? But because Jesus was crucified on the cross, what God says we deserve now is grace and mercy and all of the things that come with it, where we don't have to be separated from him anymore. So for me, in order to even start to understand this, instead of just getting it from here to here with some miraculous intervention from the Lord, I actually had to start treating myself the way I thought God wanted me to be treated. Because he loved me unconditionally, then I should be treated this way. I had to learn sort of from the outside in before I could start to accept it.
So you couldn't be hating yourself.
Right.
You needed to be loving yourself. And I got raised that might be really selfish. And instead, I started realizing when Jesus talks about the two most important commandments, he talks about loving God first and then loving your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
If I'm hating myself, it is really, really hard to love my neighbor.
Right.
I have to first take God's love for me and apply it to myself so that I can then share that love with my neighbor or with somebody else. And Leviticus 19:18, of course, with the 10 Commandments, talks about loving your neighbor as yourself because God made that a part of his concrete 10 top rules for living, was having to love others, but in the way that we have then taken God's love to us. And that's where we start changing the balance of unhealthy relationships to healthy relationships, right?
Isn't that amazing? He created us to be us.
I get to be me.
Yes. But then once we can have that identity of who we are and loving ourselves, we can then teach others how to treat us. Teach others that they need to treat us as God would, with respect, coming to us. If they have a problem with us, if God has a problem with us and what we're choosing, he comes to us, he convicts us, but he does it out of love, truth in love. He doesn't do it with a reprimand or you need to do this or you should have done this or should have done that. And
shoulding all over yourself.
Shoulding all over yourself. Yeah. That's not the way he works. He says, excuse me, you need to look at this area. And he does that with the kindness. And if people aren't treating us with that love and respect and that kindness, then we can build a boundary to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to hang up the phone on you now because I don't need to have this abusive treatment. I'm going to walk away from you. Or just communicating, this isn't something that I want to continue talking about in this way. You can come back to me when you've calmed down.
Right. And then by not accepting disrespect doesn't mean we lash back, doesn't mean we fight back.
Sure.
Turning the other cheek is passive, but it's also where we don't continue to present ourselves and put ourselves in positions unnecessarily where there is continuing harm or damage. And by that, we're showing and demonstrating respect that God has for them as well as for us. And that gives us the chance to start digging into deeper levels of relationships where it's not just superficial, it's not just need-based, it's actually mutually balanced relationships in friendships, in marriages, in relationship with God, where the more whole I am, then the more I actually have to give and accept in a relationship, because I'm not trying to suck somebody else dry, and I'm not having to let them suck me dry either, right?
Absolutely. In Matthew 7:6, it says, "Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." That's pretty intense, but I think that that's, in my past, it's been absolutely true. As soon as I let people cross those boundaries, then they feel they have the right to take what they want or treat me as they want. But if I can, again, build those healthy boundaries, what happens is those swine are not going to come after me anymore. It's amazing how when people don't respect your boundaries, they will actually feel like they don't need anything else from you, and they can be separate from you. So you're left with the people that actually love you and respect you and are willing to respect your boundaries.
Which is awesome in the close relationships. And the funny thing is, like in Proverbs 22:24, it says, "Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man." Or woman. Yes. It doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
It's clear about not putting yourself in a position. And it's not that you don't deal with people that are that don't have that self-control and don't know how to treat you well in social circles or in work circles or whatever, where you don't have control. This is talking about the people that you choose to do life with, that are part of your inner circle, that are in your family relationships or whatever, where it's hugely important. But it specifically says don't do that, because there is damage that keeps happening to us where we're actually surrounding ourselves or thinking it's okay to have our 5 closest people be hurting us or doing us harm or be unhealthy relationships. And that's not at all what God's heart is for us.
You are correct. And if you want to continue to delve into this topic a little bit deeper and find out some more about how you can apply this to your life, you can go to our website, bloomtodaytv.com. And when you enter in your email there, you will be able to download the coaching tool that we've developed, because we are life coaches and we don't just want you to get a happy message and walk away, but be able to apply this to your life. So it's just a worksheet, a few pages that goes through some of these same topics and teaching points, but also questions that you can answer to help you apply it to your own life, so that you can start to build those healthy boundaries and get those deeper relationships that you're looking for that are healthy.
That sounds awesome, and we have got a very special guest today, don't we?
Yes, and she has a story that definitely talks about looking for love in all of the wrong places and then finding it in the right place. And she is an author.
Awesome.
And a speaker and a worship leader as well. She has a beautiful voice and is a songwriter. Please welcome Tammy Daniel. Come on in.
Yay, Tammy. Ginny, can you give her a hand?
I can absolutely give her a hand. Tammy, here is your hand.
Oh, thank you so much, Ginny.
You're very welcome.
Kind of you.
Anytime, really.
Above,
you need a hand, I am here for you.
Hey, I love it.
It's so awesome to have you here. You look beautiful.
Here.
Yes, welcome to the kitchen.
Yes, I love it. I'm not much of a cook, but I like to sit here and talk.
We like to hang out and talk too. And while we're sitting here talking, we don't have to be cooking. And what's really cool is this is not a cooking show. So.
Hey, thank you, Lord.
Amen.
I would be a bad guest.
But you are a great guest for your book thus far. Would you tell us a little bit about it?
This is just my journey of early on had a wrong relationship. I married at 19. I was looking for love. My dad died when I was young.